Can I actually afford to live in Portland, Maine? That's the number one question I get from people moving from out of state. And honestly, the answer surprises most of them. Because here's the thing, Portland has a reputation for being super expensive. And compared to the rest of Maine, it sure is. But compared to where people are coming from out of state, it's often a genuine upgrade from what their money buys them there. I'm JessieHerod, and I'm a real estate agent here in Greater Portland, and I help people relocate here every single week. So let me give you the honest breakdown of what's actually pricey, what's totally normal, and who comes out ahead in the end. Stick around to the end because I'll tell you the number one thing that shocks most people from out of state, especially people coming from Massachusetts. So let's start with the truth. Because I'm not going to pretend that Portland is cheap. It 100% is not cheap. Within Maine, Greater Portland is the most expensive place to live. You got Portland, South Portland, Westbrook, the coastal communities. And if you're coming from Bangor or Augusta, yes, you're going to pay a lot more here. But most people from Bangor aren't moving to Portland. We're seeing people come from Boston, New York City, Connecticut, New Jersey, California, Texas, Florida. And that completely flips the story on its head. Compared to those places, Portland isn't expensive. It's actually a relief for most people. So the real answer is it expensive? Yes, it just depends on where you are coming from. And for most people watching this from out of state, it works in your favor. So here's the one rule to remember. In Greater Portland, housing is the most expensive thing, and it is genuinely high. Almost everything else, groceries, services, day-to-day things that you need, lands you pretty close to what the Maine average is, which is only a bit above the national average. So let's break it down piece by piece. As I said, housing is the big one, so let's be real about it. Greater Portland is the priciest housing market in the state. The median sits somewhere in the high $500,000 range, and a good home usually moves pretty quickly as long as it's priced appropriately because inventory is super tight here. If you're picturing cheap Maine farmhouse prices, it's not really in this market. If you go an hour or two up north, you can find that there. But let's compare a real life situation. Let's compare Boston, for example. A home that runs you around $700K in Boston might land you somewhere around $500,000 here. So let's say it's a 20 to 30% discount compared to your homes you're used to. Coming from New York City or coastal California, the gap is even larger. So yes, the highest cost of living is definitely in Portland, Maine, compared to the rest of the state, but it might be a lot cheaper than what you're used to if you're coming from out of state. Here's the good news inside the good news. Greater Portland isn't one price. We have Portland, Falmouth, and Cape Elizabeth, which can be more on the premium end. But we also have Westbrook, Gorham, Windham, and other towns that might be a little further from Portland that can give you a little bit more bang for your buck. And they're still amazing towns. So this is really the part that relaxes people because you have your choice of where you want to live based on what your budget is. So let's talk about things outside of housing. Groceries are slightly above the national average, but here's a fun fact. Portland actually ranks as one of the most affordable cities in New England. We have Hannaford, Shaw's, Market Basket, Whole Foods, and both Hannaford and Market Basket and Shaw's keep it reasonable. The thing that you'll really get used to is that restaurants aren't as cheap as grocery stores, which is like it is in the rest of the United States. But it's a happy problem to have because we have amazing restaurants here. So if you want to splurge, go out to the restaurants. Maine sales tax is 5.5%, which is lower than a lot of states in New England. Getting around. You'll want a car here. It's not that walkable unless you are in the city of Portland. And gas and other costs are roughly the normal for the United States. If you're coming from a big metro, your commute is going to be way shorter than what it is now. And that's money and time back into your life. So now, I promised an honest review. So here are two things that run a little bit more expensive in Maine compared to a lot of other places. So you want to plan for these things. Number one is heat. You probably could have assumed that. Maine winters are expensive and they're real. And a lot of homes have heating oil, propane, electric, and they're not as efficient as other states. So depending on the house, your budget can be somewhere between $150 and $300 a month during heating season. What's the single best thing you can do to offset those costs? Buying a home that has a great heating history, and that should be in the disclosure that you receive from your agent. The seller has that information, and they usually are very transparent about it. The second thing is electricity. Maine's electric rates are really high for the country average. We have usually somewhere between $110 and $160 on average costs per month. It's not a huge deal breaker for a lot of people, but it is something to consider because it is very, very expensive. Okay, so those are your two most expensive things that you're gonna have to budget for: heating and electricity. But here's what I promised you guys. A number that really makes people excited is the cost of living compared to where they came from. So let's talk about Boston, for example. To have the exact same lifestyle comparison, if you were to spend $9,600 in Boston per month, you would probably roughly spend about $72 to $100 here. So that quality of life is about 25% less money here in Maine. So to put that another way, Portland's overall cost of living runs somewhere between 25% below Boston and over 40% below New York City. So when people tell me, I heard Portland is expensive, I say, expensive compared to what? Where are you coming from? Because usually no matter where you're leaving, if you're coming from a major metro, you're likely to pay a lot less here. So how expensive is Portland really? Here's the honest bottom line. If you're coming from elsewhere in Maine, yes, it's very expensive. It's a premium market, and there's really no way around it. It's unfortunate for Mainers, and it's something that we've had to live with for the past 5 to 10 years. But if you're coming from Boston, New York City, Connecticut, California, which most people do, your money is almost certainly going much farther here than it would there, and your quality of life goes up. Housing is the real splurge, so plan for heat and electricity, but enjoy the fact that most everything else is normal. Okay, so if you want the whole thing in writing, real numbers, a town-by-town price and tax breakdown, all of it, I built a free Greater Portland relocation guide, and the link's right below for you to get it. If you're serious about making the move here or just running actual numbers, talking about towns, I'm here for you, and I would love to chat with you a little bit about that. So reach out to me. My contact and calendar link is in the description as well. No pressure, obviously. But before you go, do me a favor in the comments and leave what city you are planning on moving from and where you would like to move in Greater Portland. I would love to see the comments of where people are coming from. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in Maine.